according to Rahul Chauhan, PhD, and his colleagues who focus on workplace psychology and how social media influences the workplace, they came up with the statistic that 72% of adults in 2019 regularly use some form of social media, which skyrocketed from what was only 5% back in 2005. Now, you should be concerned because 2/3 of adults get their news from social media sites such as TikTok, where clips range from 10 to 30 seconds, to Instagram Reels, which last 1 to 2 minutes. None of these platforms are subject to fact-checking agencies, which can lead to misinformation and can influence big events such as a 2016 presidential campaign election, for example. I'm confident that I can present this topic to you because I had studied the subject of moral intensity, or how sensitive an individual is to moral issues. And I also feel that students, there needs to be this desire to map out situations, to envision certain behaviors that will lead to a certain outcome and result, and to detect when another student is in a vulnerable situation. And my thesis and argument is that social media hinders the ability of social consensus or a group to be able to detect whether an action gets a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I believe that they'll less of the time be able to detect when something is incorrect or something is fishy. And I also believe that social media hinders the ability to feel nearness to the community, and I think that it negatively affects the ability to make altruistic acts of kindness or giving to another person. And one way to illustrate the issue is I was on Instagram and I saw a caption that read, "Crooked Joe Biden." Reading this caption, you may think Joe Biden is lazy. But now you're judging Joe Biden as a whole only by seeing a part of him, and that very same student is very unlikely to read a peer-reviewed article or a scholarly article on EBSCO host in a long-form content because of the immediate type of content we see on Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. And also, according to Sana Abu Hasera, who is at Hamad Medical Corporation, which is a non-profit healthcare provider, and her colleagues, they figured out that emotional intelligence courses can lead to career success and job satisfaction, critical thinking skills, problem solving. And this finding from her and her colleagues relates to our class, because if we eliminate the time usage on social media, then we can create more time for emotional intelligence courses that can have a positive impact. And now that we have seen how social media can make us prone to confirmation bias, and according to uses and gratifications theory, where we just pull up information that's relaxing, it conforms to our beliefs, it doesn't contradict our opinions, I want to jump into what I think could be the potential solution. I believe in a 7-hour occurring over 1 week that gets substituted instead of social media that people usually do after school. And these courses would happen all online 100% because teachers can't take on that additional burden of teaching more course material. So an online classroom environment would be established to be able to teach emotional intelligence courses. Now, I was wanting to pull a quote word for word from Mark Brackett, who is a senior research scientist in psychology at Yale University. In a New York Times article, he stated that something we now know from dozens of studies is that emotions can either enhance or hinder our ability to learn. They affect our attention and our memory. If you're very anxious about something or agitated, this is me adding into the quote, and your habit is to use social media or drugs to numb your feelings, how well can you focus on what is being taught? Now, I also want to meet some objections as well. There is productive content on social media. A wealthy businessman like Grant Cardone can put out content that people look up to in order to grow a business. But I still believe that, first of all, everything that they've remembered will not be forgotten within that course of 1 week ban, so a very small portion of time. And secondly, they can make face-to-face mentorship connections, network in social situations in order to find someone they admire and to get mentorship from them in person. Now that we have a clear understanding of practical ways to implement emotional intelligence to your life and the common objections, I want to visualize 2 ways that emotional intelligence classes would occur. First situation, you have teacher James coming to prepare his class presentation. He's going to teach his kids for the day. And one student, very sad, because his mom was yelling at him over playing too much on the iPhone. But he's not invited to share his feelings, so he stays quiet about it. And teacher James recognizes that he's feeling sad, but he says, we don't have time for this. We're on a busy schedule. We got to move on. And now, that's for situation 1. Situation 2, teacher says, before class starts, everyone lay out what adversities have been going on at home and lay it out on the table. Now, this student has the ability to say, my mother yelled at me, it didn't feel good, and then the teacher would say, opens a class discussion. Who has ever felt this way, where they've been yelled at and they've gotten sad? Most students would raise their hands. And so the teacher would say, it's a natural feeling to get upset. And it's a natural feeling to get upset. Melancholy is normal. But they would now role play a situation. And Charles, for example, would be the boy. And teacher James is now role playing the situation of a father. And Charles uses a toy teddy bear. And that is the substitute for the iPhone. And now, teacher James would say, he would scold at the boy. He would say, would I see you're playing too much on your iPhone? I don't like it. And then the Charles would say, I don't appreciate when you yell at me. And then teacher James would realize, I'm sorry, I was in a stressful situation because of work. It's not right to yell at you. This is kind of how you can visualize an emotional intelligence course. Now, we've looked at one aspect of emotional intelligence, which is how to deal with shame and vulnerability. But I also believe that if we take time away from social media and then we put it into emotional intelligence courses, which has many facets, it could lead to stronger ethical decision making.